So, welcome to the How to Play Magic video. Like, subscribe, comment for more stuff. Ring the notification bell. And yeah, here we go. So, what you need in order to play Magic is a deck of 60 cards. Playmat is not necessary, but encouraged. A way to keep track of your life. And yeah, essentially that's it. So, in order to play Magic, let's get a little bit of background info on, like, parts of a card, the like. So, here we have a creature. You can tell it's a creature because it's got the power and toughness on the left and right. Power is always on the left, and toughness is always on the right. You can tell it's a creature because it says creature right there. Then it says the creature type, and right here is where all the abilities go. Then up here we have the cost. It needs 7 in total, 2 green, and 5 of any color. Then there's the card title and art. Then, of course, flavor text, but that doesn't matter. So, now we have a basic land. It says basic land right there. And it's a forest, so it's forest up there. There's the set symbol and rarity thingy. Like a reddish bronze is mythic rare. Gold is rare. Silver right there is uncommon, and black and white is common. So that just means you tap it and it produces 1 green mana. Up here we have Celestia Locket. Sorry. It can tap for a white or a green, and you can pay 4 white, a white or a green, a white or a green, a white or a green, a white or a green. Tap it, which is turning it sideways, to sacrifice it, put it into the graveyard. And you get to draw 2 cards. Drawing cards comes from the top of your deck, and so now that we know the parts of a card, let's get into parts of a turn. So, step 1, you're going to want to draw 7 cards. 7 cards off the top of your deck, and that is your hand. You are allowed and encouraged to look at your hand, because I'm holding my phone in one hand. Will just go from here. So, over here we have basic land, 3 of them. This guy costs 12, 2 plus 10. This guy costs 9. We're probably not going to be playing him for a while. So, parts of a turn. There is the untap, draw, upkeep. Upkeep is essentially nothing unless there are cards that says stuff happens during the upkeep. Then you have your main phase. You can play lands, sorceries, and creatures without flash. Flash means you can play them at any time. So I place a land forward, and so since I have this guy that can come out first turn, because he only costs 1 white, see? I'll tap the white land, turning it sideways, and put this onto the battlefield. Some people have their lands up here, some down here. Honestly, it's more widely done down here. And since we'll go to our combat phase, but this guy doesn't have haste, which means he can't attack. When creatures enter the battlefield for the first time, on like their first turn, unless they have haste, they have this thing called Summoning Sickness, okay? Summoning Sickness is essentially, it's weirded out from being yeeted into the world that is the battlefield. So it can't tap for abilities, but abilities that say tap a creature you control or something like that. This does not apply to lands or artifacts. We'll get more into artifacts later. What am I missing? So seeing as how this guy cannot tap to attack, we will pass our turn. So, here we have your opponent. He also has a deck of 60 cards, a way to keep track of his life, and a 7-card hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is a red and black deck. Oh, excellent, an artifact. I can go over what artifacts do. So unfortunately, we didn't get any creatures in this hand, which kind of sucks, but we already went over creatures over there. So we can go over enchantments. They go onto creatures or lands in some cases, and they have the effect. Golden rule of magic: always read what the card says. Golden rule. Like, if you're just like, hey, what does this card do? Someone will say, read the frickin' card, okay? So then over here we have artifacts. Artifacts don't have the thing of summoning sickness, so that's pretty neat. Essentially, if they have a tap ability like this one, then they can do it right off the bat. So, seeing as how we have a black land, we'll put it onto the battlefield. Seeing how this card, Dead Weight, costs 1 black, we have 1 black, we'll tap it, add the black mana to our mana pool. The mana pool is essentially like where the mana... So swamps produce black mana, mountains produce red, forests produce green mana, and plains produce white, and islands produce blue. I might have an example of an island. This is an island, okay? It produces blue mana. So, since this only costs 1 black mana, we'll expend that black mana to enchant it to that creature. Therefore, giving it -2 to attack and -2 to health, or toughness. Since it doesn't have any toughness, it goes directly to the graveyard, which is where cards go when they die. And since this has nothing attached to it, or it's not attached to anything, it goes to the graveyard. And since this guy has, his turn is done, he can't do anything else, so he's gonna pass over here. So, untap, draw, upkeep. Ooh, Celestia Guildgate. Those are a kind of lands. They're not basic lands, but they're still lands. I don't really have anything I can play, so I'll just play it. It enters the battlefield tapped, so that means you can't tap it because it's already tapped. We don't have anything we can play, so we'll pass our turn. Untap, draw. Ooh, we have an instant. These can be played at any time except during declare attackers, declare blockers, and I feel like there's one more time, but I can't remember off the top of my head, so whatever. Since let's see, that costs 3 of any color. This costs a red, a black, and 1 any. This one costs 1 any and 1 black, but until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0, and so it gets +2 to attack, and gains when this creature dies, so it would go to the graveyard. Return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So if I did have a creature and I were to play on this, then instead of it dying, it would come back to my battlefield tapped. So since I can't do anything over here, I'll pass over to this guy. So, we're over here now. This untaps, we draw, play it. We have not played a land, so we will do that. So, we have a sorcery. Those can only be played during your main phases. So, it costs 2 any color, 1, 2, any color, and 1 white. That gives us a white. So, instants and sorceries, they do their thing and then they go to a graveyard. This thing's effect is create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. I'll explain what lifelink is at some point. Goddamn, where are my tokens? Let's see. Oh, no, that's a goblin. That's another goblin. That's a vampire. It's another goblin. Found it. So, these are tokens. They are useful, but since it says create 2, I only have 1 token. I don't know. We'll just grab one of our handy dandy dice and put a 2 on it. Therefore representing, you might have to clear this up with your opponent, because there's these things called +1/+1 counters or -1/-1 counters that can also be represented with 2. You know what? Whatever. We'll get into this later. So now, since this thing has done its effect, it now goes to the graveyard. So now we have 2 1/1s with lifelink. That means any damage dealt by this creature, causes you to gain that much life. As you can see, we have 20 life. That essentially just is a set symbol. It pretty much means 20, because as you can see, there's every other number 1 through 20. So granted, that would logically mean 20. So now we got everything that we need, so we'll pass. So we have nothing to untap, so we'll just draw, play a land. We got another dead weight. That might come in handy, but since there are 2 of those 1/1 soldiers, let's not worry about it. But what we can do is we can play Rakdos Locket. So we'll tap the 3, since it needs 3 of any color. It's an artifact, and it has a tap ability. You can add a black or red to your mana pool. And for 4, either black or red, you can sacrifice it, put it into the graveyard, and draw 2 cards. Then over there's some flavor text. We could play Dead Weight, but that would be a waste of a Dead Weight because those are tokens. They're expendable. Unlicensed Disintegration, on the other hand, that deals damage because it says destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, which we do, Unlicensed Disintegration, that's the card, deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. So, if I were to use this, it would kill off one of his creatures and deal 3 damage to him, which helps us. But we only have 1 thing that produces mana, okay? So we'll do that next turn, probably. And for now, we'll just pass. So, untap phase, draw, you get the drill by now. Oh, perfect timing. So X means it can be any number as long as you can pay for it. For example, this guy costs a white, a green, and an X. Right now, the X could equal an amount of 2, because this produces green, this produces white, and then 1, 2, that could be X. This guy, Galta here, costs 10 any color and 2 green, but it costs X less to cast, where X is the total number of total power of creatures you control. My bad. Trample. So, these both are 1/1s with lifelink, so therefore our total power is 2. So right now this costs 10 to cast, which is still a bit too much. This guy, on the other hand, has this thing called Convoke. See, it says what Convoke does right here. It says, your creatures can help cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 colorless or 1 mana of that creature's color. So, for example, this would add 2 white mana. But since it only needs green mana to cast, specifically, then we would just use it for any color. Unfortunately, it costs a total of 9 because 7 plus 2 is 9. And we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're 3 away. We could cast it soon. On the other hand, we could play this, but it's better to save up X cards. So, we'll go into the attack phase, since that guy's completely open. He has no blockers. I tap the creatures and say, I'm attacking with 2 damage because there are 2 1/1s. And they would be like, oh, you're attacking with 2 1/1s? Do they have any special abilities? If they had flying, you'd say it's flying. Flying creatures can only be blocked by creatures with flying or reach. Creatures with reach are creatures that don't have flying but can block creatures with flying, hence reach. These creatures have lifelink, so damage dealt by these guys would cause me to gain that much life, in this case 2 life. So since he can't block it, see, no creatures, he would move his dice down to 18, and the lifelink, making me gain 2 life, would put me at 22, because 20 plus 2. Anyway, let's yeet on back to this guy. This guy is a bit salty because he's been attacked and he's now at 18. So, ooh, another Rakdos Locket. Useful. Anyway, so we'll play another land. We'll probably go through with the plan, tap those, play Unlicensed Disintegration on one of them, bring them down to 1, and you take 3, bringing you down to 19. See? 3 damage. Anyway, we still have 2 mana untapped. That one is useful on creatures, but this one would kill off his last creature. Bam. That's dead. Tokens, when they die, they just get exiled. Exiled is like graveyard, but like more permanent. You get anything that's exiled back after the game ends, but it's like removed from the game. Anyway, so we'll yeet on back to here. This guy costs 5. We'll play land. So he costs a green, a white, and 3 of any. So a green. This guy, I'll tap for a white, and then 3 of any color. Bam. Now, he does have Convoke, but we don't have any creatures. So, Vigilance. That means when it attacks, it doesn't tap. And it's a 4/4, meaning it has 4 attack and 4 defense. So, now the point of Magic is to get your opponent down to draw a card while there's nothing in their library. That can be accomplished through a few different ways. Getting their health down to 0 or some other way. Most oftenly getting your opponent's health down to 0. That concludes the video. Like, subscribe, comment. If you like this series, then please say so. I'm probably going to be doing more advanced stuff like deck building and more stuff like that. Other than that, this is DatBoy1212 peacing out. Bye.